Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Conversations, the number one conversational podcast in the galaxy. I'm one of your hosts, as always, Will Beeman, joined by my two Canadian compadres, starting off with the ever so lovely DJ Giller. DJ, how are you doing?
Starting with me, I hate when you do this. I have to be on it. I have to say something notable. I don't know. I feel like Josh is more suited.
When you said ever so lovely, I was like, he's talking about DJ. Of course, it's not going to be me.
Yeah.
It's DJ.
It's like the beginning of the SpongeBob movie where he's naming off all the qualities. SpongeBob's like, that's definitely me. That's definitely me. And then it was Squidward. Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, DJ's the ever so lovely man. Look at him. He's our hardworking frontline worker. He's out there braving the pandemic. He's doing the work we can't.
Exactly.
And donning a lovely sweater today, we have Jackson Wells.
Yeah, I wanted to, first of all, back in the basement that you may have seen over quarantine, just for the week, or I guess depending on where this falls, we might do 2 episodes down here. But yeah, I'm wearing the sweater. I wanted to show off my new Star Wars shirt I got. It was a gift from the Kind of Funny Secret Santa. Person's name escapes me at the moment. That's awkward, but it's really cold, so I needed to accessorize with this sweater to keep myself warm during these cold days.
So for me, when we have to record in the mornings like this, I'm too lazy to change, so I just put on a sweater and then just don't change my pants. And it's like, well,
no, you put your Kylo Ren cosplay on because
I put my Kylo Ren cosplay back on.
Mm-hmm. You slowly piece together your helmet.
Exactly.
Yeah, since
next week I'm gonna come in with like new threads in here. They're just all woven together. It's crazy.
Yeah, since DJ is our frontline hero, he has to work 8 hours today, so we're recording very early in the morning on a Sunday.
Y'all remember what happened last time we recorded early? I was not on my game, so let's see what happens.
Jackson was wild, but that's what we have to do for the content, and with the holidays being on Fridays as they were this year, so
that was so funny. I remember we were going into the holiday break. We're like, oh yeah, we got this. This will be fine. I was like, Christmas and New Year's Eve fall both on Fridays.
And then I was like, oh wait, we're gonna have things going on.
Wait, has it been 2 weeks? No, we only spent 1 week. Yeah.
No, just
there'll be a 1 week that we've missed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the way things fall.
Yeah. Acceptable.
Have you been celebrating your holidays?
How have I been? It's been fine. How have you been celebrating yours?
I haven't left the house.
DJ's a man of many words.
Yeah.
Hey DJ, you want to record a podcast? Sure.
Sure.
Anyways, I haven't been going outside very much. A, you're not really supposed to. B, I don't have anywhere to be, so I'm just hanging out at home, watching movies like Star Wars.
That's right. Yeah, you two are both back into the love lockdown.
Yeah, for better or for worse. For better.
Yeah, for better.
Also, on the other hand, we just went back to 100% bar capacity being full. And I drove by an Applebee's last night, and the parking lot was full, and there were crowds outside the door without masks on.
You guys probably have more cases per capita than us too.
Could you imagine?
Reopen it.
My city alone probably does.
Could you imagine doing it all for Applebee's? No offense, but Applebee's
half price apps after 8.
Yeah,
Applebee's. I'm pretty sure that's an American chain too.
You know,
Applebee's. There's nothing more Midwest America than Applebee's. That is Midwest white people culture.
If Applebee's was in Canada, I 100% would be all for opening up everything.
Keep it closed.
I can't handle it. Yeah.
But the Applebee's
stays open. I've never been to an Applebee's. I just make fun of it.
So did you guys get anything good from Santa from Christmas?
DJ?
Not that I can think of. Santa was Santa's a nice guy, but
DJ is ungrateful for his Christmas gifts.
Santa didn't purchase anything for me. Santa just gave me gift cards of money this year.
Right. Very smart of Santa.
So I bought a lot of clothes, if I'm being honest. No good content. I bought Justice League Unlimited on Blu-ray, the complete series, thus completing my DC Animated Universe collection, except for Static Shock, which, as we've discussed, is A, they don't print it, and B, meh. Anyways, I don't want to trigger any fanboys here.
Yeah, the Static Shock fans.
The Force Lightning, there might be some crossover.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Static Shock versus the Palpatine.
Palpatines.
Yeah, because there's got to be multiple.
The many Palpatines.
In our absence, though, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle on the online things, but it's just going to be for the best if we don't get involved in that. There's no need for us to get in the weeds of all of that kind of stuff going on. People
Especially
can figure it out
weeks
pretty
later,
quick on-
technically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people can figure it out just by getting on Twitter because it's still like in week 3 of the uproar. But
Just go to vanityfair.com where they've written a full article or whatever
Yeah.
website it was. I can't remember.
There's variety.
yeah.
Variety, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we're at. But I mean, I'm showing my support for I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before that the 3 of us are doing the quest where we are watching all of the theatrically released comic book movies
And
ever
sometimes
made,
not theatrically,
and sometimes
really.
straight to TV. We
Or
have
sometimes straight to the garbage can.
yeah,
never
we have
released.
some choices on our list, but that's just because we want to watch all of them before we get to Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I'm showing my support by sporting my BVS poster
Exactly.
because I've moved out of my Star Wars collection room. I'm in my other bedroom in my house. You
We should
can't
make
really
it a
see how
secondary
busy
goal.
it is right now, but
We should make it a secondary goal to track down a copy of something that like is not something that was unreleased that's like not even on YouTube for anyone. Just like figure out what that movie was and track it down and watch it. 'Cause we gotta
we
be
did
all
that. That's
encompassing. You
the
know?
Captain America 2 movie that now we all
No,
own
but
on DVD.
it's gotta not be released. Like I want to break into WB is what I'm saying. Like we gotta track down whatever bad Batman movie they made in 1972 that
You
no
know
one
what we
knows
do
about.
is we get that Superman movie with Nick Cage, whatever they filmed for that movie.
Yeah,
we gotta
and we
find.
watch it. Yeah.
You know, Tim Burton's got the negatives for that in his basement somewhere.
Yeah, we'll break into Tim Burton's house. That's fine.
Mhm.
Or Nick Cage probably has them actually, because I bet he still has the suit.
He's
I bet
probably
he wears
s-
the suit around the house all the time.
Nick Cage probably
Yeah.
sold them off for tax money, from my understanding of his position.
Yeah, he has to do that a lot. But what an actor, though. Oscar award winning Nicolas Cage. But yeah, so we're back, and this is our first episode of 2021. And this was an episode we were originally going to do before we found out that the holidays were going to make it hard to record about, because we're going to take a little bit of a retrospective look at both The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. The Force Awakens now being 5 years old already, which still to think about kind of blows my mind, because not only like is the movie that old already, but I have gone through so many life changes just since the movie's come out. I realize where like
I was still in high school when that movie
sold
came
a house
out.
twice and graduated college in that time, and
I was still in high school when The Force Awakens came out. So
DJ wasn't even a Star Wars fan yet until The Force
No,
Awakens
I
came
had
out.
never even seen the movies. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
I in
just
high
how
school?
much things have changed.
No,
you
I
were
had
in high
just
school.
graduated. I graduated in June of 2015, so I was only just out of there. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's
Crazy
wild just to
times.
think it's that old already. And you can kind of tell, like, not that the film has dated, but like the actors just look like children in that movie.
Oh
now.
yeah.
yeah.
Like they've
It's
all
very-
aged so much in the last 5 years. But so that movie is now 5 years old, and DJ's number one Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker, has now officially reached 1 year old. Which, just because 2020 was the way that it was, that movie also feels like it came out 5 years ago.
You know
Yeah.
what? It really does. It was interesting for me because I haven't seen that movie since theaters, so it was interesting to watch it.
Yeah.
Now, when you're removed, also, I will say during this rewatch, I did also rewatch The Last Jedi, but there's no convenient reason to include that into our discussion.
Yeah, but I mean,
you
I did as
you
well
can't
when I
escape it.
rewatched all of them, but that's just because I can't watch one of the trilogy without watching all of them. I mean, it just doesn't
Yeah.
feel right.
Yeah, I also watched all of the documentaries associated with those movies, and it was interesting. There's no good Force Awakens one, at least not one that I could find.
Which is still crazy to me. Maybe
They're all on
they'll-
Disney Plus.
Maybe they'll release one this year for like the 5 year anniversary thing. No, I guess they've
For
missed
Force
that mark, so
Awakens?
they can't now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. They also use a lot of footage from The Force Awakens behind the scenes in the Skywalker Legacy. So,
Yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
really?
in a way, the Skywalker Legacy feels like a doc for both of those movies.
Yeah. Yeah, we
In
can
term-
talk about that though when we get to The Rise
Yeah.
of Skywalker, because I think that's more of the documentary you were expecting out of the director and the Jedi.
Yeah.
So we can kind of get to that, but let's just kind of reflect back now on the quote unquote legacy, if you will, of The Force Awakens and kind of how we're still feeling 5 years later and the impact overall that the film still has. So, DJ, um, let's have you go first on your reflections back on the movie, because I think you're the least hot on it of the three of us.
I had a weird rewatch with this movie. I just wasn't quite feeling it this time. You know, like I usually watch this movie and just like, yes, this is the best. But this time I was like, it is what it is. You know, it for better or for worse, it was definitely trying to get back to that old Star Wars feel, and like that I love it. But it was just a mostly fine movie that, in complete retrospect, seeing the entire trilogy now, definitely feels disjointed and didn't know what it was gonna go, which it didn't. It didn't know where it was gonna go. Um, so yeah, I just it was fun to revisit it, and it's still a great. It's still a great movie, but yeah, I wasn't as hot on it as I usually am this rewatch. It was weird.
So do you think that's
But
just because you're coming from the perspective of seeing the completed story now?
yeah, seeing the
Or
completed story
yeah.
and just like this one, more than the other two movies, this feels the most like we have no idea what we're gonna do here. We're just
Yeah.
throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, which again is like maybe the right choice considering you have to bring Star Wars back and do something with it, like see what people are into, see what characters people are gonna like. But yeah,
In a weird way too, it feels oddly like small compared to the other two
yeah,
movies, which is weird considering like in terms of scope wise, The Last Jedi is the smallest movie. It takes place over the least amount of time. Um, but there's something about doing a Death Star again, or something along those lines, where it feels like the stakes are smaller, because you're so focused in on kind of the resistance group. That's not a knock on it. It was just interesting. I noticed that watching it in retrospect, especially compared to The Rise of Skywalker, where they're running around and then there's like a real world ending event going on,
Right.
which makes sense. That's kind of how trilogies progress. It was interesting to kind of see comparatively like how like small the first movie feels compared to the other two.
yeah, and part of that's just because like they had to reintroduce all these characters. Like I think that's part of the reason is like we take it so for granted watching this movie now, but it was like that movie had to reintroduce Han Solo and Leia and show them where they are and what's happening. Which like if you're reading all the EU stuff, like you kind of had a good idea of like where we were kind of going, and like it's still just like they still have to set it all up. Like a lot of it does feel like set up. So
Well,
What? Go ahead.
before we go into the actual movie, I want to ask, what was it like for you seeing this movie for the first time? Let's talk about our experiences watching the movie for the first time. 5 years
The
ago.
theatrical experience. Well, I mean, I think I kind of briefly touched on it when we did our review episode on this, but like the theater experience for this film is probably like the most unforgettable one that I've had, because like I saw episode 1 in theaters when it came out, obviously, but I wasn't there like at premiere night. I was 9. I was there when my dad could take me, so we probably just went on a weekend, probably opening weekend, I would guess. Like can't even remember like the opening. I can't even remember when we would have saw it. Like I know Revenge of the Sith, I didn't see that till like a month after it had released because my dad took me to that too. But like for this one, I was like there for the opening night, which the way movies work pre-pandemic was like premiere nights were basically the Thursday night before at 6 o'clock. So I mean, like now it's like midnight premieres are kind of done with, but like the energy there, because so many people were in costumes and like there was just a buzz about the whole thing. And I'll never forget, there was a guy that was probably in his 50s or 60s who probably like he just had that look where you knew as a kid he saw A New Hope in 77 in theaters. And he had like the way our theaters are designed. I don't know if this is a universal thing or not, so I'll explain it. But like, there's like a tier of seats on like an upper level, and then there's like a middle row, like where people can walk, but there's like 2 single seats on the end, and then 2 double seats in the middle, like
Just like
usually
wheelchair
they're for
access as
handicapped
well.
people.
Yeah.
But like you could also just get them if you're not, if you just want a single seat, you can get those. So he had one of those single seats, and when he came into the theater, he took a photo of his seat before he sat down, and then he like took a photo of everyone in the theater, and then he sat in his seat and took a selfie of himself in the seat. So like this guy was like documenting even where his seat was in The Force Awakens. I remember looking at him and I was like, man, I don't think I'll ever get to that way, but I probably will get to that when I'm older. I'll probably be at that phase. But so like when things would happen throughout the movie, like in my peripherals, like I could see him reacting, and like the dude was having the time of his life. So like that enhanced the theater experience even, just because which is weird because like I'll even tie this into my theater experience seeing The Rise of Skywalker. Is like that guy was like having the time of his life, like as a guy who was a fan of the movies for almost 40 years and was just loving it, which is kind of the takeaway impression the majority of people who saw The Force Awakens were. Like there were people online that were like saying, oh, it's just a New Hope 2.0 or the whole Rey controversy, but like that wasn't nearly as loud or prolific as any of the Star Wars controversies, if you want to call them now.
Not even close.
So like that theater
We were
reaction,
so young.
Yeah, that theater reaction was like legitimate overjoy from everybody. But when I saw The Rise of Skywalker in theaters, like because at that point we had gone through almost 5 years of the trenches of what Star Wars dialogue online has gotten, and like I remember as I was watching the movie and like story choices were being made, and I'd be like, oh man, I wonder how this is going to hit with people. But like I was left confused in Rise of Skywalker versus like feeling the overjoyness, because I saw it 3 times in theaters, and every time all of the questionable choices that I thought would cause outrage and do cause outrage online if you get to the right Star Wars discussions were like being met with applause every time. Like all 3 times I saw it, like people loved Chewie getting his medal. They loved the Ben and Rey kiss. They loved that they were all like, what? When it was revealed she was a Palpatine. It was like, it was so bizarre because like people who are really into it like us will watch it and be like, oh, they should have just kept her as Rey Nobody, not Rey Palpatine. And like, you either react negatively or you're just kind of neutral on it. But like, I still remember like when they revealed she was a Palpatine, the opening night screening I went to, this lady that was sitting like a row in front of us, like you would have thought somebody shot her dog. She was so caught off guard and like hurt by it. Like she legitimately was like, oh my God. And was so into, and like there was one of the showings, it was my second showing. I saw it by myself and sat next to this couple, and like this girl was like so into the movie and like squirreling in her seat. Like I felt like I was like, it was almost getting to the point where I was gonna have to elbow her to calm her down. Like she was so into everything, and I was like, and like I will talk about this too, but like I still think Rise of Skywalker, even rewatching it now, I just think it's fine. Like it's just fun. Like I don't think it's bad, I don't think it's good, it's just there, which is okay because it's fun and it closes out so we can move on to bigger and better things. It does what it needs to do. But like it was just bizarre to see it with people I would dub more casual audience fans actually just like overwhelmingly enjoy it in the theater each time. So it kind of just shows how separated I am at this point from people who aren't as into
We're
it.
all crazy. We're all out there too far.
I love talking about The Force Awakens for the reason that I love telling the story about how I saw it, because I think it's really fun. Yeah, I think these theater experiences, especially for The Force Awakens, like everyone I talk to, they're like, oh yeah, theater experience was great. For me, when I saw The Force Awakens, like I literally said, I was in high school still. So sorry to everyone out there who feels old about that. So I remember I was in one of my classes and we were doing this like computer thing, and I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy tickets to see Star Wars. And we have like this like small local theater down the street from my high school, kind of in the main street area. I wear their t-shirt sometimes on the show. Shout out to them. I also worked there for like a summer, so also shout out to them for that. Anyways, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy tickets. And then a couple of my friends in this class were like, oh, we're probably gonna go to see Star Wars too. We'll buy tickets too. And then what we realized was that the movie came out on like the last day of classes for the semester, or I guess the year, whatever. High school is different, and the way our high school worked was that at around noonish on the last day, classes would be done, and they would do this like talent show or whatever. But you know, when you're a cool high school teen, you don't go to the talent show because you're too cool for
Yeah,
that.
I don't even remember this, but I was not a cool high school teen, so I feel like I should have been there. But I
DJ, what are you
I have
talking
no
about? You're
recollection.
the trendsetter of cool.
I have no cool recollection of what you're talking about. Honestly, that's weird.
That definitely was a thing that happened. So you're
It's been a few years, so
yeah. Anyways, so we were like, okay, we're gonna skip the talent show and we're gonna go see Star Wars at like 12:30 or whatever. And this was on like the Friday that came out. So in our heads, we're like, man, we're some of the first people in the world who are gonna see Star Wars at noon on a Friday, and we're gonna skip school because that's cool. And so we got there, me and like 5 or whatever of my friends. We realized that classes were over at high school and it was noon on a Friday. So this theater was full, but it was full of like 95% of like people from my high school, which generally would be a bad thing, except this is full of like people who want to go see Star Wars at high school, which also Star Wars fans, also a bad thing, except this time it was cool. So literally I saw Star Wars at like noon in like this small local theater, just like full of people I knew and people I went to high school with. And it was like so chill and like everyone was so excited. And I was like looked around and I've like never been in a room full of people who like I know and are also like super happy. It's such a good time. I really actually one of my favorite theater experiences was like seeing basically going on a field trip to see Star Wars on the last day of school. It was cool because we were all like, see you later. We're going home for 2 weeks. See you after Christmas break. And then there was like a couple older people in there who like made it fun. People brought their kids. And then the day later, I took DJ to see it, and it was one of our first dates. And
yeah,
here we are now. And then now DJ reads Star Wars books more than I do.
Yeah, no. So that literally that day, I think that night we hung out, and you were playing Battlefront. I remember, and we were just like, "What's this titular Star Wars thing about? I don't know anything about this franchise. There's a new one happening. This is weird." So then I remember I was seriously considering watching all three of the originals like that night, and then going to see the movie. But I was like, no, I'll just go see the new one. It'll be fine. And then I did. The next day, we went and saw the new one with our other friend in the morning. So then I saw my first Star Wars movie was Force Awakens, which was a very strange experience, very weird one. I was very confused. Like the entire time I'm sitting next to Jackson and like Ray's on screen, I'm just like, is that supposed to be Leia? Like what's going on? Like I don't understand what this is. And it's just like just watch the movie. Like it's fine. And like credit to them, like it totally works on its own. You don't need any prior context really. Yeah. Like it's good, obviously, but
DJ's the demo for this movie.
Yeah, I'm the statistic.
He's the exact statistic they need. Is they were trying to bring in a new fans, and like DJ's in so hard he reads the books and comics now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the reason Kathleen Kennedy has a job.
Yeah.
It's all because of me.
Yeah, DJ's the savior. Thank you, DJ, for saving
Anytime. It. I'll try to do it again for another franchise when they reboot it.
It's funny hearing Jackson's theater experience story because I had that literal same experience, but not with Star Wars when I was in high school. I had that same experience with Jackass 3. Or it might have been Jackass 2. I can't remember when those movies came out. I just remember it was one of them came out like right when we had a half day for school. Mm-hmm. So like me and all my friends went the first showing after school would have dismissed. And when we got into the theater, it was just full of kids from my high school. So that was a good time. But it was one of those Jackass movies.
That's fun. You know what? Maybe that story is not cool, but when I reminisce about high school, I think of very few things. But that's one of the things I think about.
Well, yeah, those are the good times from high schools when you have experiences like that.
It's a shame because if you actually talk to anyone else at the theater, like I guarantee half the people would have been mad that Ray is a woman and all this stuff. But it's just like I'll keep the happy
Then
memory.
Then the 2 years after that, my brother went to the high school and he started performing in this Christmas like talent show or whatever. So I had to stay and watch that. So shout out to
Uh-huh.
him for
You
being
can watch The Last Jedi in the tiny theater.
no, it was a shame. I don't have a strong Rise of Skywalker theater experience. I remember being like,
No.
whoa, they kissed. But the one thing I do remember super strongly is that I had a Cats cup because Cats came out at the same time.
Ah,
And
yeah.
and it's
I
funny
remember
because
that.
you would think all the branding on the cups and stuff would be Star Wars, but no, it was Cats.
Yeah. Yeah, Cats did kind of dominate the theater marketing, I remember. I mean, I'm always going to have a negative association with that movie because one, I hated Cats. I thought it was a terrible movie. Like, I like musicals,
talking
but like,
about?
I don't think the music in that movie is good. Like, none of the
You
songs stuck
you don't
out.
even think it's good, terrible?
No, like, I thought it was just bad, terrible. Like, I was
Oh
really
man.
bored in it.
I
And
almost rewatched it over break, but I need someone with me who had never seen it before, and I need to be very, very drunk. So I
yeah,
didn't have either of those. So I just didn't.
like, when I was watching it, like because I remember I was going, I went to the 9 a.m. showing too, and I was like, because I on a normal time I wake up that early. I've been really lazy about it this week because I've been off work on vacation. But so like I got up, and my dog had been recovering from ACL surgery, and like she was just kind of getting towards the end of the
On the
recovery,
IRs.
and I was like, well, this movie's an hour and 25 minutes, and I was like, she'll be okay not in her cage for one movie. So I went and saw Cat, and I got to the theater at 9 a.m. and I was like, why is the theater this packed on a Saturday at 9 a.m.? I was like, Christmas is in like
Cats.
4 days. And I went up to the ticket guy because I went to the theater so often, they knew who I was because I'm that guy. And I was like, why are these lines so out of control? And he was like, everyone's here seeing Star Wars. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that's good for Star Wars. But so I
They need that.
so I
I'm
watched the
trying to see Cats
movie,
here, man.
had a terrible time, and then I got home and my dog wasn't putting any weight on her other leg. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So in the hour and a half time that I went and saw Cats, my dog tore her other ACL that I had to get surgically repaired and go through recovery
How do I
again.
not remember this?
Yeah, so I forever am going to have negative feelings towards the movie Cats because it
I
ruined my
understand.
dog.
Yeah.
I own Cats on iTunes, so if we ever need
Yeah.
to do a thing.
If
If
you
you
want to
wanna have a
watch
better
Cats,
experience
just
this
watch
time.
the cheetah fight scene from Wonder Woman 84. They look
Woof.
the same.
No spoilers. No
That's not a spoiler. Like cat, they show that
Oh, I know.
they show her
I know
in the
she-
commercials. Like
yeah.
she just has big cat's energy the way they did the CGI on her.
I like it. Very
No.
jellical of them.
Yeah, it was a very jellical choice.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just like talking about theater experiences because I think
Yeah.
mostly the only time people talk about theater experiences is when they talk about basically just Avengers Endgame,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of boring because I think there are other movies you can see in theaters. Now, Star Wars isn't much different, but it was also 5 years
Yeah.
ago, so I feel like the vibes are different.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think depending on how you tolerate audience reactions, horror movies are always either lifted or ruined by the theater experience. Just
Yeah.
I had
yeah.
when I saw Us, I had a really great theater experience because everyone was just rolling with that movie, and I think that movie's great. I think some people disagree, but anyways, I don't want to derail us from talking about more Star Wars content.
Yeah, it does make me miss the theater experience though. I think Sonic was the last movie I saw in the theater.
Sonic was my last one too.
And that was almost a year ago now.
We should retire. Sonic is the last. That's all we needed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, Sonic killed cinema.
Yeah.
I was a bad boy and I went to theaters.
Well,
I live in Canada. I live in Canada.
Yeah, most of the time when you're not in lockdown, your area of your country was doing pretty well at handling things.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
And even when you're locked down, it's not even that high of a case count compared to what America is letting happen.
Yeah.
So that's a good reminiscing of the theater experience. So let's kind of reflect now on how we felt watching the story play out. Because like I know DJ kind of mentioned that his feelings have changed now that he knows how the story plays. Jackson, you on the other hand, we're still pretty high on this film. So how is it going
Yeah.
back and watching for you?
I I said this to each other. Obviously, if you know me, you know that my favorite of these trilogy is The Last Jedi, obviously. But there's something about this movie that's just like, it's a real rock rolling adventure, like the whole time. I think it moves like, I think Rise of Skywalker moves too fast. I think maybe The Last Jedi lingers for good reason in a scene. But I think this movie's kind of got like a good pace to it, keeps it moving. Like DJ said, does a fantastic job of introducing everybody. This movie's just like fun overall. Like there's not really like a dark side to this movie. Like Kylo's kind of emo, but like he's so early on in his emo stage, so like he's still kind of tolerable in like a fun way. Um, and yeah, it's just like everyone's so happy, everyone's excited. Like Finn spends or John Boyega spends half this movie just screaming "woo" the entire time. Like he's so excited to see like Poe shooting people in the sky. He's like, wow, no, that's a pilot. And I'm like, yes, it is. He's so good at flying. Um, everyone's so happy. This movie's like really fun, and I think this movie's like infinitely rewatchable. Like, see all these people. I do like looking back. You can kind of see how there's like dangling plot threads just all over the place. They're throwing stuff up and seeing what sticks. Which, like you said, isn't like a bad thing per se. It's kind of annoying. Where did she get the lightsaber?
Mm-hmm.
Answer me
Story
this.
for another time.
I don't actually care. It's just like it's the most blatant example of them being like, well, we'll wonder what this is about anyways. And then it's just like the issue I have with that one is like they literally say, "Oh, how did you get this? I don't know, I'll tell you sometime later." As opposed to like, "Whoa, what's the deal with Finn? Like, is he force sensitive? I don't know. We'll discuss that later." Spoilers, they won't.
Yeah.
Um but like I think the most egregious one is the lightsaber because they literally call attention to, hey, this is weird. How do you have this?
Yeah.
But like it's okay. It's just like kind of annoying. And that's one of the things about this movie that's like I find kind of frustrating to watch, especially seeing the full context. It's like, man, you guys threw up a lot of things here and then didn't really. And I think it's okay to not know. It's just that like I think it's more a fault of this movie than the sequels, which is why I kind of like fault it a little bit. Is like you should have just committed to a couple things and then moved on. But it's hard. I certainly give them credit for starting with like so many different good ideas. One thing I will say, as opposed to just like talking about the movie, but the movie in context of the whole trilogy, is it is really kind of disappointing. Even though I love Last Jedi, what they do with like Finn in these movies, like he really could have been somebody and could have really done something. And I think his story, particularly in The Last Jedi, goes in really interesting and important places. And I think The Rise of Skywalker is close, but doesn't fully kind of stick the landing on him. But like he is clearly kind of relegated to the sidelines in the following two movies. And it's kind of disappointing. I like Rey, I like Kylo, but like I feel like he kind of had a place in this narrative that he kind of not necessarily got written out of because I don't think it was written in stone in the first place, but like it's not really, it doesn't really come together. And I think there's so much potential in that first movie. And then like they kind of going to Rise of Skywalker, they kind of like shove it in ours in his face where they're like, you might be force sensitive,
Mm-hmm.
or you might just be in love with Rey and we're not going to tell anyone. It's like,
Yeah.
you should have just cut it
Yeah.
and like moved on. Like we're past the point where you're like introducing new plot elements to Finn. Yeah, that's kind of rewatching this movie. That was my big glaring thing where I was like, man, this guy, he could have been somebody. And he's
Yeah.
like, and I like what they do with him specifically in The Last Jedi, but it's clear that he's kind of relegated to the sidelines. Even if I think the sidelines are pretty good.
Yeah, it almost makes you say, what if JJ did do episode 8, like where Finn as a character would have ended up going? Because I kind of think, just from watching Force Awakens, like JJ was definitely pushing for Finn to be like, if not the big guy, at least co-big guy with Rey.
Yeah, it's
like, they were
clear
supposed
that
to be the 1-2 punch.
it's clear that like Johnson really loved Kylo and kind of brought him more to be the second to Rey's first in a weird way, which I think works in some ways, but it's clear that like when he went up, Finn went down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like we can really ascribe that to any one director, especially not knowing the behind the scenes of this. Like as much as you can say it's Johnson because he directed The Last Jedi, you could also talk about like how JJ seemingly did not want to work with the story group, and like how did that all play with it? Like, did the story group always not want Finn to be a Jedi and be like this 1-2 punch? Like, was that always the intention? And JJ was kind of pushing his way in there. Should JFJ have done it anyways because it was the right thing to do with the story? Like, there's a lot of things that are just like, I'm just saying, don't take what we're saying here as, well, JJ or Ryan ruined Finn.
Yeah, no, it's just there's going to
so
be
much more complicated.
There's going to be so much stuff that happened behind the scenes we're never going to get answers to.
Like, I also find like I kind of find similar to the way when I watch the Clone Wars, I'm like, the clones here are so cool. Like this war they're fighting in, like how does this work? Where do like they fit in this? I think the stormtrooper angle of Finn is so interesting and so unexplored, even in Rise of Skywalker, when really it's on like 2 or 3 lines that it gets brought up. Like the idea of a stormtrooper who quits and kind of becomes the hero or one of the heroes of the resistance, I think is fascinating, and it's kind of gross underexplored. And then like even like if he did end up being like a force sensitive like force user, like that would have been even more kind of like, whoa, like he used to be a stormtrooper, and like it gets brought up in the future. He's like made fun of for being a stormtrooper, and then like he's kind of useful when they go into like their bases and stuff like that. But it's one of the areas that I wish they kind of went into a little bit more. And probably like when I think about it, the only real gap that I'm like, they really should have dug into this more. Like when you talk about maybe like Han and Leia should have lived longer or whatever, it's like, well, I don't know, like that's just a direction, but I feel like a missed opportunity is what I would call Finn in these movies.
That's why we have to release the Trevorrow cut, right?
Yes. You know what? As weird as I feel about that movie, that's the most interesting part of that
That
movie.
is, I think universally everyone looks at that and be like, that is what should have happened. Yeah, like that's great.
And like it kind of happens around like Skywalker, but it doesn't really. Yeah.
But I still think, while it has cool ideas in there, I still think Duel of the Fates would have been a much worse movie than what we ended up getting. But I guess we'll never know until they release it as a novel.
That's DJ's voice and face when he disagrees with you, Will, in case you didn't
no, I'm not saying that. I don't think the Duel of the Fates script is very good either. The difference for me with Duel of the Fates is that the Duel of Fates would be a movie I don't like, same as Rise of Skywalker, but it would still feel like a conclusion to what I wanted. That would be my only thing.
Yeah.
But we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as Jackson though, where I think this movie is still incredible, even despite how the 2 sequels and the story ended up playing out. Like, I don't know if it's the touch of having Kasdan in as a writer or what it is, but like The Force Awakens gives me that same happy comfort food feeling that I get watching A New Hope or Return of the Jedi. And like the prequels don't even give that to me. Phantom Menace comes close. I think I have like the biggest appreciation for the Phantom Menace for some reason, and that might have just been because I was at the right age as a 9-year-old to like
you're
that
the demo.
movie. But yeah, because I think out of the prequel era, I think the Phantom Menace is the one that's almost closest to giving me that feeling those 2 original films do.
I try so hard. I was thinking about rewatching it recently. Because I feel like you're right. Because like my gut instinct is Revenge of the Sith, but like that movie just is too messy for it to be like good. Anyways, not the topic.
So like The Force Awakens gives me that Star Wars feeling I want out of Star Wars when I watch it. Because like I've said on the show before, even when we were reviewing everything, like when Star Wars is fun and has that space fantasy serial adventure feel to it, that's when it's the best for me. And that's why I like Return of the Jedi and A New Hope and The Force Awakens more than I like Empire and The Last Jedi and Rogue One and stuff like that. Because like I enjoy those stories, like those serious, deeper look into each other and that kind of, I still like those, but like when Star Wars is fun, that's when it kills me. So The Force Awakens still checks all of those boxes off. There's so many great moments in The Force Awakens that is still like top tier, like when the Resistance X-Wings are coming up over that water.
Oh, that's
And
good.
that big long one shot with Poe taking everyone out, and the lightsaber fight between Kylo, Finn, and Rey, and Rey's introduction as a character in general when you hear Rey's theme for the first time, and the opening of The Force Awakens in itself is just
the opening of The
incredible.
Force Awakens is so good.
That stormtrooper raiding the stormtroopers raiding that village, our introduction to Kylo Ren, kind of showing how in touch with the dark side he is, and
It's so good.
introducing Poe to us. Like everything on that movie fired on all cylinders, and yeah, it's very similar story beat wise to A New Hope, but like A New Hope is just similar beat wise to what The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell is. So like,
Yeah. The one thing I noticed, especially watching these three movies together in such quick succession, is kind of what you said about Lawrence Kasdan. Like, one of the maybe criticisms, or at least something people say a lot about the original Star Wars, is like, one of Harrison Ford's criticisms is you can write this shit, but you can't make someone say it. And watching this movie, you can really tell like they're writing a wordy, like, it sounds like the way the dialogue speaks, it sounds like original Star Wars, whereas I think kind of The Last Jedi, the dialogue's a little bit more natural, which I think is something that throws even me off sometimes. I'm like, they're just kind of like talking like normal people. And I don't use that as a criticism. I think it's kind of fun and cool when like they're talking like it's some like weird Shakespearean play that they're starring in. But that's one thing I thought was interesting. Because I think even The Rise of Skywalker doesn't really have that as much. And I think it might be, like you said, a very Lawrence Kasdan-esque thing where like the way they're sounding is like theatrical, which I think adds to kind of the fun and gravitas of the scene.
Yeah, and I think that also might be leading credence or credit, whatever word I'm looking for, though, like why Solo works so well is because that also has the Kasdan touch on it. And I just think like a lot of Kasdan stuff outside of Lucasfilm projects like is not good, kind of like George, where it's just like they figured out how to make Star Wars work and they nail it when they're involved. And like that's the biggest absence I think with The Rise of Skywalker is they don't have that like JJ's not a good writer. I think he's a very good director, and he shows that in how he directs The Rise of Skywalker and Force Awakens, but like he can't write it.
I agree.
I almost wish they would have let either Terrio write the entirety of 9 and see how that would have turned out, or maybe they would have let him use Trevorrow's script and then just direct it himself. Because like the JJ products I like the least are the ones that he writes the most on.
Mission Impossible 3, dope movie.
Yeah, so like I think he had the visual eye that Star Wars needed. I don't think he has the writing eye. And that's not saying that Rian Johnson had it either, though. Like it's just stating it when you can watch The Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens and compare the two with each other. You can there's just that writing quality that's missing. And whether that was a JJ problem because he didn't have that much writing influence on The Force Awakens. Like he rewrote some of the script that Michael Arndt wrote. And then after that, even they were like, we need to bring Lawrence Kasdan in. And then Kasdan came in and finished out and rounded up that script. And I think that's why The Force Awakens feels so Star Warsy. Because like you said, there is a lot of times in The Rise of Skywalker, they are using a very modern tonation, very modern reactions. Like at the beginning when Poe and Rey are kind of snapping at each other, and she's like, "Is he in a bad mood?" And Finn is like, "Always." Like,
it feels weird.
Yeah, it doesn't feel earned or Star Warsy enough, and that's because like in the Last Jedi, they're separated the entire film, and then all of a sudden they're just like never separated in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I think that's part of like if I to jump to The Last Jedi, if I were to like criticize it, sometimes the humor feels weird in that movie because it's written in kind of like a modern and kind of writing, which I think maybe sometimes works on paper, but when you put it to screen in a movie that like half of it's this like melodrama about this like boy turning to like evil, but maybe he's good, kind of
Mhm.
doesn't really like fit 100% of the time.
Yeah, like that's why I think the iron gag in The Last Jedi is dumb, but like in The Force Awakens, when Han Solo is like, I'll talk my way out of it like always, and then Chewbacca growls and he's like, yes, I do, every time. Like that's Star
Yeah.
Wars humor, not
Not
something that
sight
looks like a
gags.
spaceship landing, but it's actually an ironing out some Imperial Guard suits. And
No fun.
No, I can't agree with you. I think it's funny.
oh, I know you think it's funny, but like it's just not what I look for. But like we have a 3 hour pod where I'm explaining why these comedy bits don't land with me.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, so like I don't know, The Force Awakens, even though I know how the story turns out, it just hits every time. And I
I
also
agree.
think The Force Awakens is a consequence of how we got to The Rise of Skywalker too, because like they really do, when you rewatch that movie, put a ton of emphasis on who Rey is.
Yeah.
So like, and everyone complains about that kind of too, where like, I mean, I do think it would have been for the best to leave her as nobody. But like when you're looking back on it, where like this was supposed to be the Skywalker saga, it probably would have made sense to have her immediately be solved as a Kenobi or like some kind of Skywalker relative or something, because like the drama of the Skywalker saga is just that family. Like I don't think it really would have been the right place to evolve a family tie in the Skywalker saga that would extend beyond that small world view. Like I think that was something the movies they're making now that are going beyond that should have approached. So like I think maybe even though it would have worked out better to have her be Rey Nobody and then take up the Skywalker name, I think we got her to be Rey Palpatine because I think they should have gone that direction throughout the entire time. Like she should have been a Kenobi or a secret solo child or something like that. And I think that would have helped tie a lot of the criticisms of her. Because like if Ben and Ray would have ended up being siblings, that would have been kind of a cool poeticness to it
Because
because
they kissed.
well, I mean, yeah, they probably wouldn't have kissed though if they ended up being
Well,
siblings.
Star Wars.
But they could have redeemed Ben by the end and then have like Ray and Ben be the new Jedi leading the way. And I don't know. That's how I think it, looking back on these two films that bookend the trilogy, I think that would have been the best way to go with Ray. Um, like I don't know. I can only praise the last or not the last Jedi, the
Oh,
Force Awakens so much.
yeah.
Because it just still every time I rewatch it just slaps. And I think that's
Mhm.
probably the one I've rewatched. No, I've watched The Last Jedi the most out of the new ones because I'm still trying to hope that movie just clicks for me at some point. And then I can be on the high tier like you guys are. Because like I think that
Yeah.
movie's good, but I'm just not up to the same level you guys are.
Mhm. Yeah. I think I don't know. I agree that The Force Awakens is really good.
Yeah, so let's shift gears here now and let's go to DJ's favorite film, The Rise of Skywalker, and let him kind of go over his feeling now 1 year later on The Rise.
I think we should focus on, at least for me and DJ, 'cause I know we both don't like this movie. Maybe steer away from just general criticisms of the movie because we did that already a year ago, and I
Yeah,
don't know if your thoughts
I
have
don't care to
changed
go
much.
through it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nothing's really changed. I don't really care to go through
I
every
I
little
have some
thing.
year later thoughts, mostly just because I've only watched this movie for the second time. But that's my input. I do want to hear what DJ has to say though. Okay, for me, I'll go first if you want, DJ. I think that the Rise of Skywalker. I I said this, and I think the best way I can describe it is what I said to DJ already. Is I like all these characters, and I like when they like interact. It's just that in this movie, what they're saying and what they're doing, I think ranges from like kind of boring to super dumb the entire time. I'm not gonna like argue over like, oh, but Ray Palpatine is bad, or oh, why did he die? Why did she say Ray Skywalker? Because I don't think it's necessarily like super important. It's just like watching it a year later, I'm like, wow, I really love everyone in this movie. Finn, Rey, Poe, even all like the weird side characters from like the Resistance that you see in each movie. Like the one lady who's second in command, I can't remember her name. She's the one who kisses the woman at the end. I can't remember her name, but like I'm like, oh yeah, her. She's been in all of these. And then the one thing I do think I kind of like with this movie is even though like Rose is, I wouldn't even say she's relegated to the sidelines. I'd say she's relegated to like the nosebleed sections of this movie. I kind of like her interactions with like Billy Lord's character and Dominic or whatever his name is.
Dominic Monaghan.
Monaghan, yeah. I like kind of their little interactions, but like just like what they're doing, I think is like so dumb. Like the whole Palpatine finding him and going to the Wayfinder and doing the weird knife thing. Like I'm just like, this is kind of dumb. But like all these characters, like I want to see what they do, and I really like the way they kind of slowly introduce the I can't remember anyone's name in this movie, and I would literally watched it last night. John Boyega and the Nakia, I think her name is.
Jaina, right?
Jaina, sorry, yeah. I think that might be her actress's name. I'm like, oh man, these two are kind of cool together. I want to see kind of what they do with their stormtrooper side. Like the movie doesn't get to that, like it doesn't have time to. But I like that idea, and some of the things they throw together I think are super fun. But like, I just by the end, I'm like, what are we doing? We're like in this weird cacophony of like voices and like people are screaming. And then like Kylo Ren, his last actual meaningful line comes with like an hour left in this movie talking to Han Solo, which is like a good scene. And I think it's like pretty impactful, but like it's really just a poetic recreation of their scene from The Force Awakens. And he doesn't say anything else. It works. It's very good. But he just doesn't say anything else the rest of the movie. And like, that's got to be bad writing at some point where like your main character doesn't speak for the last hour of your movie.
I think they probably just didn't know how to do it. They were just like, this is such a big thing to have this character turn and what he's going to be like in his new form. They're just like, we have no idea, so let's just let the action speak and hope that works.
It's weird because like that's not something that like happens by accident. You don't like finish filming and you're like, whoops, he didn't say anything for the last hour of the movie. Like they wrote the movie, like they knew he wasn't going to.
There are scripts of this movie that exist more than likely, like drafts that had him saying stuff. 100%, they have. And then
especially watching the Skywalker saga, which is the documentary with the making of this movie, and then kind of just like the Skywalker legacy as a whole. Like Adam Driver really actually loves Kylo Ren and is like really interested in how this character, like one of the most interesting parts of that documentary is he's like, yeah, I do all my own stunts because I'm so protective over the physicality of this character. And if he like cares so much about like the way Kylo Ren moves, pretty sure he cares a lot about what the guy says. And like he doesn't do anything. And it's so weird, especially watching this movie come out the same year as like something like Marriage Story, where like Adam Driver is a fantastic actor. And he's like wasted in the back half of this movie because he doesn't even say anything. It's so weird. And I think story choices aside, and like you can kind of argue back and forth about what should or shouldn't have happened in the movie the entire time. I think it's undeniable that like the dumbest decision in this movie is to have him not speak at all in the last half. It's just, it boggles my mind. And like, I think like Rey Palpatine, I think is very dumb and I don't like it, but like, okay, that's a story decision you made. Like, let's go through it and see what happens. But like what they do with Kylo or specifically Adam Driver in this movie is so weird. And like, I just don't get it.
Right. It's almost like when they were writing it, they were just like, well, remember in Return of the Jedi, when Vader redeems himself before the special edition, he doesn't say anything either. He just picks Palpatine up and throws him down the shaft. So what we should do is redeem Ben Solo, but not have him say anything either, and then also die. And, like, and that was probably the farthest they thought about it.
And like, I had forgotten watching the movie, but like, when he gets down into like the Exegol and he says his ow line or whatever, and everyone's like, that's funny. Like, he does a lot of like cool physical acting, especially in that scene with the Knights of Ren. And then like the moment where she puts her the thing behind her and he pulls it out, that's still sick.
Yeah.
Like that was the moment in the movie where I like freaked out the most watching it in theaters. And then like the way he like moves around, like he's right where he does really care about the physicality of this character and how he moves. But like why isn't he saying anything to these people? It's so dumb. He's not even quipping at them, which like you would think would happen no matter what.
Yeah,
Especially when he like
as Han Solo's
he
son.
becomes Han Solo basically in the last
Yeah.
bit of this movie, and he's not just like, well, boys, are you ready to dance or whatever?
Yeah.
It's very strange. And I won't harp on it anymore, but like that was the main thing watching this movie. Because I was like, I know this is gonna happen. I'm gonna check, and like the scene on Endor in this movie is not that like the movie is very back heavy, and that scene is like pretty like an hour or so left, and then he says out like 30 minutes or whatever, and I'm like, can't believe that this is how Homie goes out, especially as like the fan favorite character, not even like a fan favorite, like he's the guy.
It's undeniable.
Yeah.
Very strange choice in a movie of strange choices. But like I said, to kind of conclude my thoughts is like, I really love these characters and I want to see what happens to them at the end. And like when like Finn and Poe are like kind of joking back and forth, I'm like, yes, I like this. I wish we got more of this in the other three movies or other two movies. Like we said, like Poe doesn't meet Rey until the end of The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that's a mistake. And like they
have like kind of one conversation at the beginning of this movie. Then they were kind of off on our adventure. Rey's like not paying attention to what Finn and Poe are even doing for the rest of it. Really, it's like very weird.
These three, like I like them interacting. I think it's kind of fun. Poe's a little jealous of Rey. Finn's giving her a lot of attention. Maybe he wants to kiss Finn. I don't know. I didn't write the movie.
No, they're buddies.
But I think it's kind of like fun back and forth with them, like what they're doing. I'm like, this is so weird. And yeah, I watched the documentary that goes along with this, and like anyone who's like, oh, they hate Star Wars and they don't care making these movies is just dumb and talking in bad faith. Like people making this movie clearly like really loved it and really enjoyed doing it. It's just like the story that what they were working with, I just think is like for the most part a miss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to be nice about the movie while also being honest to how I feel about it.
They definitely, every time they interview crew members like about these movies, it gives off the exact same vibe that the Mandalorian crew people do. Yeah. And everyone will watch those and be like, see, these are people that care about Star Wars. This is how it should be. And it's like, no, they're all like that. It's just they wrote 3 stories that not everyone is universally agreeing on.
Watching
a lot of people behind the scenes on those 2 shows are the same people.
Yeah.
Like,
like the art departments are basically the same. Like in the art of the Mandalorian, Doug Chiang even talks about how hard it is to work on the Mandalorian because they were also working on the Rise of Skywalker at the same time.
And like it's fun to like watch the stunt coordinator like talk all the actors through acting. She's just like, yeah, you gotta jump and fly, and it's like, oh, we're having fun.
She was so into it. It left me with the exact same feeling that how the Game of Thrones documentary watched about season 8. If you watch that, like everyone on the cast and crew was totally still into it, but then like the story just did not hit with the fans. But like when you watch the behind the scenes stuff, it's like these people all genuinely thought they were delivering a home run for everybody.
It's kind of sad.
I think I would echo most of what Jackson said. Like I think the biggest thing rewatching this movie for me, apart from just the story, so I just fundamentally can't stand, is that I feel like there's so much. There is redeeming this for me now. There is like, I can see. I said to this when Jackson was watching it, I was just like, I think the heir to the empire for this trilogy like is going to be great. Like I think there is so many ways that you can kind of not ignore, but at least like don't really jump into the rabbit holes of like Rey Palpatine and like should she be a no one, should she be a Skywalker, like all those kind of. I feel like you can ignore so much of that stuff and still move forward with this and still kind of. And I think people will just make up their own headcanon for what they feel like these characters should be, and they probably won't touch on it. And I think that's my biggest thing is just like, as much as I thought the story was broken for me, it's not totally. It's not totally anymore. Like it's fine. Like I don't agree with some stuff. That's fine. It is what it is, and I think the movie is still somewhat functional regardless, and it's still very fun to just hang out with these characters. So I enjoyed it on those fronts for sure, and I think I think I'm so much more interested in moving forward with these characters, even if that does not happen for 5 more years or whatever, whenever they feel like it's safe to do so.
I think my last big point is one that it's hard to fault them for, but like there's got to be another way to do it. Is like this movie really fridges Leia, and like not in the sense that like oh she's pushed off the side, because like I understand that like she died, but like story wise and thematically what they do is like Leia is just the mom in this movie, and they even kind of retcon her to be almost worse in my opinion, where like she quits being a Jedi because her son might become evil one day. And I'm like, I think that really like she really gets put through the ringer in these movies. Like Leia goes from the strong but the love interest in the original trilogy, and then she's the teacher, and then she's the mom. It's like that dumb Evangelion episode where they're like there are three sides to a woman: the mother, the love interest, and the teacher. And it's like, oh, I feel like women are a little bit more complex than those three things. But like it's tough where like you don't have a lot to work with, you want to do it right, but I feel like if you got like one person in there who was like, hey, we can maybe do something different, there's other ways too. But it's tough to fault them, but I feel like what they do is pretty bad in my opinion.
Yeah.
In like a fundamental way, not necessarily in like a technical way.
And I think that's just a shortcoming too, is not only because I think the two people responsible for that movie are not that good of writers, but also because like I have BVS here, there is a central theme in that movie, just like Leia, is their mom.
The mother
So I
scene,
think
yeah.
that's just Terrio's fallback on his mom
Terry's got
stuff.
some mommy issues,
And
yeah.
but like that's why I would encourage people, if you do want to read the novelization of The Rise of Skywalker, because I think Ray Carson does a phenomenal job of fleshing Leia out in that book to be a much bigger player of the actual story overall. Like she wrote Leia so I can't like original trilogy level importance Leia in the novelization. And it makes the story flow so much better. It makes it feel so much better. You actually feel the mentorship between her and Rey that we just didn't get because they probably only had like 6 minutes of Leia footage to work off of that they had to put into this movie. And we're able to get her as a character in the book the way that we couldn't get in the movie because Carrie Fisher is unfortunately no longer with us.
It's really sad because you kind of in the documentary they're like very clearly Force Awakens is Han Solo's movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Jedi is Luke's movie, and The Rise of Skywalker was supposed to be Leia's movie, and then like that obviously didn't work out. It's kind of sad to see that like she didn't get the due, even though like
the big hiccup with Trevorrow's script too, is like his original drafts that he rewrote. It was 9 was going to be Leia's story for him too, but then once she passed away, he started rewriting. So I mean that was something they all had to deal with. Is they definitely wanted her to be the one that was closing out the saga.
Yeah. And I think they should have just committed and just not done any of it. Like it, I don't fault them for how it turned out because I just don't think there was any way to make it work to begin with. Like I think they should have just accepted what had happened and tried to move on from the story. Like I know it would be hard and like you probably have to say something in the movie, like you'd have to address it, but nothing you were gonna do was gonna feel right.
Yeah, like everyone wanted Leia to die in the quote unquote Leia Poppins scene, but like she becomes important enough in the plot of The Last Jedi where that would have dismantled things significantly.
Yeah, I think
they shouldn't have done that.
I think those scenes of her in The Last Jedi are some of the best of her in the whole trilogy, or the whole trilogy, the whole series.
Yeah, but like I know it would have ended up being extremely controversial and probably would not have been liked at all. But like I said in our group text last night, I still think the best route they should have gone was they should have wrote a novel in between the films where Leia died off screen. And then we could just move past Carrie Fisher's absence being on the screen. Because I think just as much her being in episode 9 was also them wanting to put Carrie on screen one last time.
Yeah.
And I think they should have just taken care of that with a novel and given us like a year and a half worth of time to kind of all mourn and cope with it. So that way, by the time 9 came out, we weren't expecting to see Leia again. I mean, they could have used her likeness as a Force ghost at the end still. And
Yeah.
I think that would have been better than what they ended up trying
It's
to do.
just so tough for me seeing her on screen because I'm like, this just doesn't. It looks like you took footage from an old cut
Yeah.
from a movie from 5 years ago and threw her in there, and like it just doesn't feel right
Yeah.
anytime she's on screen. But I do kind of really like the idea they kind of flirt with in this movie, which is back to my point of like this movie has like interesting ideas. Where like it's true from like basically for like the past 30, 40 years it's been the same people who have the same woman who's been leading this kind of group of people, and now it's like what do we do when she's gone? Like we've got for all intents and purposes still some pretty young kids of like Ray, Finn, and Poe. They're all pretty young still in this movie, and like how are they the ones who pick up the pieces of this and kind of continue? And the movie just doesn't give time for that because it doesn't have the time.
Yeah.
Which is
And when they
why
do, it's fun. Like when
Yeah.
Ray or when Poe and Finn have that interaction where they're like general, like I was
General,
like, yeah, this is good. Like I love this. But
it's
yeah,
injecting some like new life into this rebellion that they need. They just don't have the time, or they don't give the time to really flesh that out. And I think you even see it with like, as I said before, Kelly Marie Tran and like kind of her crew of the Rise of Skywalker. Kelly Marie Tran is another one of my big issues with this movie. She's 100% pushed to the side. Like I'm like, oh yeah, we've got some new life in here, and this is interesting. Because even in like The Force Awakens, a lot of old people, that old dude with the big beard, even that older lady, and even like Holdo is kind of older than everyone else. It's like, okay, now we've got some like new life, but they're like experienced, and like Poe's learned his lesson about leadership, which is really good in The Last Jedi. And like now they go forth, but then it's over and they win. And they don't like, there's no rebellion if there's nothing to rebel against.
Yeah. There's still just so many good fun moments though in The Rise of Skywalker that propel it
I agree.
into
I really like the
an
sand speeder
enjoyable movie.
chase thing.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
like
they
how
can fly now?
It's like how I described it after I saw it for the first time a year ago, where I was like, this movie doesn't hit like the walk-off grand slam like everyone thought it should, like it probably should have, kind of like Endgame. Like criticisms of the MCU aside, Endgame nails the finale of what it's going
Oh, yeah.
for. And
Yeah.
like that Rise of Skywalker should have done that, but instead of having like that grand slam walk-off win like that, they just hit enough singles to score enough runs to win anyway. That will make sense to people listening that like baseball, but to anyone else it might not. But
An American sport.
yeah, so like I think it just does its job. I'm like, as we've said on previous episodes and the news and all that stuff, I am in with the High Republic. I'm just ready to put all this behind and move on with all the new stuff coming, because there's such a flood of new things. There's not even really a reason to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, I want to
Like,
watch something new too. Like for some reason, The Mandalorian feels so associated with that kind of old trilogy in a way that people love, and I do too. But I think a lot of people love it because they're holding on.
Yeah.
And it's like my man Kylo says, no, you're still holding on.
Yeah. Yeah. So like all the new stuff I'm so excited for. And like I also think like people that are on Twitter loud about the Rise of Skywalker are just as annoying as people that are loud about The Last Jedi. Like, just it's time to move on. Either move on or just stop watching. Like, please stop making your personality online about two movies out of like 12 total canon films, 4 movies that aren't considered canon anymore, 3 television series, hundreds of books. Like, just move.
Boys turn 19 and then base their past personality off of one of these 4 movies.
Yeah.
And 2 of them are Star Wars movies.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's just there's so much excitement still for the future of things. And like when they inevitably do an episode 10, and like I still kind of think they're gonna let that be Filoni's thing. Like that'll be his live action picture debut. I think will be episode 10 whenever that's made. I'm just very interested to see if they keep the saga films being Skywalker related, where they'll go with it, because like it ends with so much potential, but I don't think they'll be able to get an Adam Driver back. I don't think they'll be able to get a Boyega back. I don't think they'll be able to get maybe even Daisy Ridley back. Like,
You might
I
need
just
it
don't.
after
I don't think
Chaos
that
Walking or
many.
whatever.
I mean, they could just say, "Yeah, we're connected to Disney now, so we have unlimited funds to throw at you." It's just I'm curious how many of these cast members even will have an interest in coming back in like 10 years to continue their stories at all. They might have to just use a loose thread and start anew that way.
This is gonna sound mean to Adam or to Star Wars, but I feel like Adam Driver is kind of going on to make serious real people movies.
Yeah.
Big air quotes on that, because I don't want to like be dismissive of Star Wars, the podcast in which I co-host.
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know, Oscar Isaac's weird because I feel like he's obviously the most of an actor before this trilogy. But like, I don't know, I feel like he's kind of also gonna do his kind of serious man thing. He's getting a little older. He wants to win his Oscar, perhaps.
Yeah, if he
I
wants
don't
to play Snake,
I don't
his
know
Oscar.
about Oscar Isaac, to be honest. Like Adam
He's
Driver's
weird.
definitely gunning to become like a top actor in Hollywood and win awards.
Oh yeah.
But like Oscar Isaac was in like these
He
low
just wants to be
tier,
Snake.
yeah, they were like these low tier serious movies before Force Awakens, and like he's just signing on for more blockbusters. He's not signing. Like he's signed on to be Moon Knight. He's signed on to be Snake.
Yeah, Oscar Isaac's so weird because like when I think Oscar Isaac outside of Star Wars, I think of
Ex Machina.
inside. I think of Llewyn Davis personally because I haven't seen Ex Machina. But like when you think about it, after Star Wars, what has he done? He did that like action movie with what's his face?
Ben Affleck on Netflix.
Yeah, and like
he did Annihilation.
Yeah, he's been like a Star Wars Disney guy basically the whole time, which I think, not to discredit these movies, but like is a bit of a disservice to himself because I think he can really like dig into a serious role pretty well.
Yeah.
But I think you're right though. Where I think he might be committed to just kind of like being a big guy, which is a perfectly respectable way to go about being a millionaire in Hollywood. But yeah, I also like. The continuation of the Skywalker saga to me just doesn't make sense. Like, I think at some point you've got to let it end. And I know that's not really how Hollywood works, but like what? They build another Death Star, they build another empire. Like, I don't know. Like,
I think
people have got to be tired.
I think you could do it, but I think you absolutely cannot just do another thing where it's like, the Empire has struck up again, the Second Order. It's finally come about, and here's the new word that's not rebellion and resistance. It's another one that starts with R that means rebelling against something. Like you got to go in a full new direction.
Yeah, I did think about this yesterday though. There is going to be an approach where, at some point in the future, I don't really have a guess on when it's going to happen, but like. There's going to be a point of no return with the old movies. Like if they want to continue the Skywalker films, like not only are the cast members rapidly becoming unavailable just because of age, but like except for like film people, you have to accept this, that like movie-going audiences don't watch old movies. And the original Star Wars trilogy is approaching that age now where unless somebody that would be like my child, where I will force them to watch it at some point, like people aren't going to watch the old movies because they're too old.
Pushing 50 now.
Yeah, like A New Hope is approaching 50 years. And like you can argue that it's a classic and people will always watch it. But like I can go up to any of my friends that are just like normal movie people, and I'll be like, when is the last time you've seen Gone with the Wind or Lawrence of Arabia or 2001 A Space Odyssey?
I watched Lawrence of Arabia last night with my dad.
Yeah, it was on AMC actually last night.
Yeah, that's who we watched some of it.
Yeah, but I'm saying like you can go up to just, but you're like in.
Oh yeah.
Like if I went up to like a
cinephile.
Normal, like DJ's probably never even seen Lawrence of Arabia.
No.
Yeah.
Don't need to.
So like the original Star Wars movies are approaching that point, like where there's something that they're always going to be talked about, but they're not always going to be watched. So like I think if they do plan to continue the Star Wars Skywalker saga,
I
they're
think they
going to
should.
have to reboot it again in a way to where they can start anew, but just loosely tie it to what came before.
Yeah, I think that's why. Like, I don't think they should ever do
Yeah.
Skywalker saga again.
Yeah.
I think it's just not going to work. I think the story's told,
Yeah.
and we should leave it.
Or like maybe at some point they will, like Lucasfilm will just say, we're gonna take a break for like a decade. Like we're out of stories we can tell right now. So we need to let everything rest. Or because like I thought about this when I was rewatching the first Lord of the Rings yesterday, where I was like, Lord of the Rings is kind of in the same position as Star Wars, where like Peter Jackson has his quirks as a director, which are very apparent throughout the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And but it like he does such a good job, especially in the extended editions of faithful to those novels. Like I'm sure at some point in time down the road they're going to remake the Lord of the Rings movies because that's been
They're
a
doing that
fantasy
Prime show.
series that's been around for years. But like I don't really know how they can do better than what we got for the Lord of the Rings. Like without doing like a literal word for word adaptation of the novels, I don't think there's any different director's interpretation will be better than how we already got it. Like the Lord of the Rings movies hit it so far out of the park. They got to cook probably for 50 years before anyone else can really try and attack those again and do it at a different angle. Like
Those
I think that's why
also exist in this like it's a very fine line, but like an older Hollywood in a way where like movies don't get 11 Oscar nominations and like 11 wins like anymore. Like it just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know where my thought is going with this. I just like things are different now in Hollywood for those movies. And even like I think the Hobbit movies suffer from that kind of because I think they kind of fit into a little newer era of Hollywood that like isn't congruent with like that kind of storytelling.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It'll be interesting to see in like 10 years how the original Star Wars films are kind of viewed by people. Like
maybe they'll remake not remake them. They'll remaster them again.
yeah, I don't know. It cuz I just feel like they're coming to their point in time where they're always going to be a part of the cultural zeitgeist, but they're not going to be part of the consumed cultural zeitgeist anymore beyond Star Wars fans.
In the next remaster of Empire Strikes Back, Han says McClunky.
Yeah.
Jabba has a robot legs and he's very jacked now.
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
I have one more note with the Rise of Skywalker that I forgot about, but it kind of confused me when it happened. Is the movie the denouement has occurred and we return to the twin sons of Tatooine, and like Rey slides into like the Lars homestead, and I got like really emotional watching it for some reason. Where I'm like, man, here we are back where it all started. And I was like, I don't like this. I think this is dumb. She's a Skywalker and she's burying the lightsabers. That's dumb. Why is she doing this? But I was like so emotional watching it, and I was like, man, Star Wars. And then she walks off.
You're a mark.
Yeah, I am. And then she walks off in the twin sons, and I was like, man, this is perfect. Even though I hate it. I don't know what's going on with me. I don't know what's wrong. I think it's actually a really good end. And like, you know, it's a very on the nose cyclical poetry, but it is that nonetheless.
And that could be how they can do in episode 10 now. Just someone's on Tatooine and just happens to unearth these lightsabers, and then they go from there.
Episode 10, Rey throws her light, like it starts where the last one ended, and she throws the lightsaber behind her back. She's like, I hate Star Wars.
Yeah, I guess we can wrap up the episode now, though. I still think Force Awakens is great. I think Rise of Skywalker's fine, but I think it's a good bookend for what we were trying to close out and move past. It could have been better, but I'm happy with what we got, and I'm still like I said a few minutes ago, I'm still just as excited for all the new stuff coming out. So I really can't let it I think it's why I'm not so like upset about some of the changes, because like I can't let it really get to me too much because there's like too much new stuff coming out to be excited for.
Yeah, that's
Um,
why I was like, I don't want to like talk bad about Rise of Skywalker for like an hour. But I already
yeah,
did that a year ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
anyone else have any final marks?
I
DJ, have you
do.
got anything?
No, I'm good. Jackson, go for it.
I have one. Watch The Director and the Jedi.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That I'll always recommend is watch that documentary because it's
fantastic. How like if you follow me on Letterboxd, you can read my review where I'm like, how does this documentary come out of like The Last Jedi, where they're just like, hey, Star Wars hard to make blockbusters. What's going on here? I don't get it. And then like they just put it on the special features of this movie's Blu-ray, and it's also on Disney Plus now. But I think it's a fantastic documentary.
Mhm. I mean, that just to me always it just emphasizes the point how much of a home run they thought they were hitting with Last Jedi. Because like that documentary is literally chronicling Ryan Johnson and Mark Hamill not agreeing with how the movie's being made, and then it ends with Mark Hamill just eventually saying, "I don't like what they're doing with Luke Skywalker, but he's the director, so I'm just going to put my all into it and let it his story get told." It's
Yeah.
like they were that confident in it where they have this honest 2 hour documentary of Mark Hamill basically just saying, I don't like this. I don't like what we're doing. Like
Mhm.
the Luke Skywalker saying he does not like the movie.
Which is like so easy for people to use to say how that movie's bad, but like they still put it out. I guess you know
They
you
were
kind of
blindsided.
coaxed
They
it
didn't
out.
know it was going to be like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, oh, but everyone's going to agree. Mark's the weird one.
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
I'm glad that
Okay.
movie doesn't get brought up as much as it could about negatively. It should only be brought up positive.
Because none of these people ever watched that. All the people that are really upset about that watched the 2 minute clip of the compilation of them saying bad stuff and just they got really angry about it. They're not in it enough to be like, I'm gonna watch this 2 hour documentary right now because I really
Yeah.
care. Yeah.
But yeah, Star Wars good. And the day after this episode comes out, that's when the High Republic books will be out. So we're kicking off into a new era of Star Wars storytelling. So before we sign off, DJ, where can the people find you at?
You can find me at DJ_Gillard on Twitter. We'll be reviewing High Republic next week, right? That's the plan.
Yeah, I think that's what the
Hopefully,
plan
if we can
is.
all get it done in time.
1.25 speed, baby.
Yeah, 1.25 speed on that audiobook. We're gonna get it done for you, so that'll be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, and Jackson, where can they find you at?
And catch me at Jackson W Wells on Twitter. I'm between with Star Wars because I watched them. I don't have anything else to say. I'm sorry. You can just end it. Sometimes I'm like, words. I was like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at Papa Star Wars. You can find the show on Twitter at Cantina Convo. Have you rewatched these films recently? Reach out to us on there and let us know how you're feeling about them. Until next time, thank you for joining us, and may the Force be with you.
Happy 2021. I got a Slack message in the middle of that really threw me off, but it was someone wishing someone else in my Slack channel a happy birthday.
Are you using Slack?
I have to for work. It's very I don't like Slack very much. It's basically just Discord but worse.
All right.
The High Republic. Oh, it's because they do drugs. That's funny. Definitely no one said that before. DJ's a working man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go pick up my groceries. They are ready for me.
Do you do grocery pickup?
Yeah.
We're trying to get my mom to do it, but she doesn't like chains. So
yeah, I'm still sticking with it for right now, just because I don't want to go into the store with people.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely fair.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go pick that up and meal prep for the week and all that fun stuff. But DJ's gonna go work on the front lines and save the world.
Yeah.
Our hero, DJ Gillard.
I'm considering again downloading KOTOR on my iPad, but I probably won't. I thought it was on
Don't do
Switch. I thought it was on
Oh
Switch
man,
for
Matt's
some
gonna
reason.
be mad we didn't bring that game up again.
One day I'll get there. I thought it was on Switch for some reason. They've got every other Star Wars game on Switch. Why don't they have KOTOR?
They
They don't have
have
every Star Wars game.
Well,
They
they've
just-
got a lot of old Star Wars games on Switch.
Yeah,
they
they've
have
been
Pod
remastering some
Racer and the
recently.
Jedi Academy games. That's about it, I think.
They got Bounty, that Jango Fett game.
Is that on Switch?
I think so. There is
I
a
didn't-
Bounty.
I thought
Hunter
it was
game
just on
Switch.
PS4 and Xbox.
Oh,
On
it might be
PS4.
that. Well,
Because
when
around
I
Force
s-
Awakens and Battlefront, they brought out like that one, Super Star Wars, and Jedi Starfighter, and something else, I think. But those were only on PS4 and Xbox.
I like old Battlefront. That was a good game. That's what I have to say about that.
Well,
Very cool.
I'm gonna go get my groceries, and Jackson, I'll see you later this evening for a movie date.
Do you want to do
Let me
7?
get the chat.
Yeah, 7 will work. You don't need to mute the chat, DJ. You'll be fighting on the front lines.
Yeah, but I'm still be checking my phone.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for your service, DJ.
Yeah, thank you,
Anytime.
DJ, our hero.
All
All right, I'll see you.
See you guys
Okay.
later.
Bye.
Oh, it's not.